my fellow readers, this is Dark Symphony 777 back with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story and any future fan fictions you want me to read or review. So, I am back at Steven Universe for hopefully the last time. Hopefully. And the story I am doing a review of is Life on the Flipside by ASDF Love. This was a weird one because when one guy suggested all three Steven Universe stories, one after the other. He's like, I just want to, mainly because I think the guy wants to torture me. Like that's what I want to think. He's like, you're gonna read these bad stories whether you want to or not. It's like, okay. At least Tourmaline was okay-ish. Yeah, or Tourmaline of the three was the best one. Don't Even Bother was the worst. This one's kind of smack down in the middle. So, what is the plot? The plot is really, really trippy. I like the core idea behind the plot, but I don't like how it progressed through the story. Like, it started out good, but then the author overcomplicated it to the point of absurdity, and it became such a chore to read and figure out what was going on. That's basically the main thought that went through my mind when I finished the story. It's like, I didn't get what was going on. Like I was just hopelessly confused over who was who, what was what was going on, and stuff like that. So the main plot is, I think they're chasing something called the Slinker. I don't know what that is. Apparently it's something to do with the actual show. Don't quote me on that. They chase the Slinker into a rose quartz room, and the Slinker slams into like a crystal heart sort of thing. And then something happens that causes the Gem Knight versions and an alternate universe versions of all characters to start switching. Like, it starts with Steven, and then it goes to Crystal Gems, and then Connie, and then Peridot, and Lapis, and Jasper. I think those are all the characters that switch. And that's basically the whole story. Like, it starts out simple enough. Like, it starts out with just Steven switching. It's like, okay, they're switching with like an alternate reality universe. Not bad idea. It's actually not that bad written. And then it goes to Crystal Gems. Like, okay, you're kind of okay. I can see that. And then Connie, I'm like, what? And then Peridot, I'm like, what? And then Lapis, I'm like, who? Like, who's Lapis? And then Jasper's like, who? I'm like, I don't know these two characters. I never watched Steven Universe. I only found out about Peridot from freaking from reading the previous story. That's the only reason why I know Peridot. Who's Lapis? Who's Jasper? I don't know who they are. Are they important? No. But yeah, basically that's kind of the whole basis of the plot. Like, they constantly switch, and they're trying to like figure out they're trying to figure out the whole differences in their characters. Like, it's just so muddled that what the author was trying to convey is kind of misconstrued in a very shoddy way. Like, okay, you have the main character is Pearl. Like, okay, I can see that. And basically, Pearl, the kind of plot with Pearl is, Pearl, I think at this point hasn't exactly gotten over Rose's death, but in the other Pearl has, and so the human Pearl is looking at the Gem Knight Pearl saying, this is what I looked like years ago. Like, this is who I was. I'm lucky I changed myself. And that's basically her story, but like, none of the other characters really matter. Like, it's kind of the weird thing with this plot, because it had a good idea. Like I said, it started with Steven. It's like, okay. And then it got to the Gem Knights, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then it got to the other four characters, Connie, Peridot, Lapis, and Jasper, and they're just irrelevant to the point of like, why? You could have just kept it at Steven and the Gem Knights, and that's it. And yes, I am purposely calling them Gem Knights, not Crystal Gems. It's a Yu-Gi-Oh thing. So, I'm just kind of baffled of how the plot went because it started out simple enough. And then once the author started adding more characters outside of Steven and the Gem Knights, it started dragging. Like that was another big problem I had with the story. It started to drag unnecessarily. Like we didn't find anything about the characters. We didn't find anything differences between the world and how the characters interact with her in the either world. It's just dragging and just dragging and dragging. Like the author's even self-aware of it. Like in the author note, right before you read the story, it said, "Hey, thanks, past me. I hate it." And that's pretty much it. But and then it kind of coalesces at the end, where where the worlds start merging together because the Slinkers are starting to get closer together. And when they go into the mansion / temple, the whole area start merging, and then they meet each other, and then they fight the Slinkers and Jaspers, and then there's like a permanent portal to each world stuck in that room. So it's like that's basically it. And so they start saying we're gonna hang out with the other versions. Oh my god. Characters. What characters? Outside of Pearl, both Pearls, there's no characters. At least I can safely say the Pearls were actually done pretty decently. I don't say they were done. I don't think they were done amazingly, but compared to every single other character, they were done well. Like both, I'm talking about both Pearls, both the Gem Knight Pearl and the Human Pearl. Like with the whole mirror image, like you have the Pearl who hasn't exactly gotten over her grief and her trauma and whatever the whole stick was with Rose was, but the Human Pearl did, and so they're over the course of the story, every time when the Human Pearl kind of hears more what's going on, she gets more and more pissed, and then she blows up at the Gem Knight Pearl when they finally do meet, and it's like, you're stupid! You're stupid! Like, that was at least done well. Like, all the other characters are just there. Like with this kind of story, you needed to show the similarities and the differences between both versions. But outside of Pearl, you don't do that. Like Steven, when he switches with Steven, I don't even know if the Steven switch until it's pointed out. That's another thing. That's kind of a pet peeve. Is like, I'll get more to that in pacing, but Steven, I don't know which Steven's which until it's pointed out. Like that's bad. Garnet, it's at least somewhat unique in the fact that in the Human, Garnet's a cop, but Ruby and Sapphire are her imaginary friends. And I'm like, that's actually not a bad idea. But the problem is it's not explored on. Like there's nothing with her character outside of she's a cop. Yeah, okay, like nothing. Amethyst is still the same. They're still lazy bums. Like why? Connie's like irrelevant. Peridot at least has something with the human version kind of crushing on Pearl, and so there's kind of like a little dynamic between them. It's cute. Like I'm not gonna complain about their dynamic with the relationship. I thought that was decent enough. Well, Lapis, just like Steven, I didn't even realize Lapis switched half the time because there was just no way to tell. Jasper just does not show up at all. Jasper does not show up at all. Wow, that's the characters. So the only good characters are the Pearls and Human Peridot. 3 characters out of Steven, Pearl, Amethyst, Garnet, Peridot, Connie, Jasper, and Lapis. 3 characters out of 16 characters. Oh, and the interludes. I actually skipped those things because No. That's like the moment I read the first one. It's like you're literally trying to world build in an interlude that doesn't need to have world building. Like, why? Like, out of all, like, that's another thing. Why world build that way? Like, I kind of understand you need, like, this type of story you need to actually world build because you need to showcase the differences and the similarities between the two worlds. But if you're doing it if you're doing it in interludes, you're doing it in a half-assed way because most people will skip, like, most people, the moment they see an interlude, they're going to skip it, which is what I did. Most people will look at the term interlude, it's like, oh, it's just immediately connect to saying, it's a filler chapter, irrelevant, and skip it. That's what I did. I skipped the interludes because they were irrelevant. I luckily read the first one, but it was clearly just filler. But yeah. So the pacing, this is like going into pacing again with the world building. There's just no world building, which would have been fine if not for the fact the author did not only do world building, but they also did character development. But just like in Subvania, it's done at the end, like the literal end. Like when they're about to fight the Slinkers, there's literally a chapter where each gem talks to their human counterparts. Like the one with Peridot, Lapis, Amethyst, Pearl, Steven, and Garden. They're like talking to each other. It's like, hey, and then you do not only you do the character development for the human versions, you do the world building on those same chapters, but it's so little world building, it's completely irrelevant. And the only character that actually gets development is Peridot and Human Garden. Like, so out of 16 characters, 3 are actually good, and 2 more at least get some semblance of character development at the end. What? Zounds! Oh my god, Zounds. Oh. I'm rubbing my eyes so much because I'm just trying to understand the logic. Like, I'm trying, like, when I read a story and I try and review it, I always make sure to kind of understand where the author was coming from writing each part. Like, because, you know, you need to dissect it, you need to examine it, analyze it from different angles, just like try and figure out the dimensions and how everything works. And I just can't figure out what the author was going for when the author wrote the story. Like, I literally can't. Like, which is why, you know, the author wrote the author's note saying that past, from the future, I hate it. I hate the story. Don't read it. Just like, so much. But pacing is all over the place. First off, sorry, going back to pacing. Sorry, my mind's scattered because I'm just trying to understand, because my mind's just so locked up on the logic behind that last couple chapters where, like, it's just a massive character and world building dump. Like, but it's so half-assed that it's not even funny. Pacing starts off well enough. With, you know, them going after the Slinker, and then, you know, the Slinker, and then the switches slowly start. And then it unnecessarily drags. Like I said earlier, the story drags in the middle. Like, it just drags. It's like, is there, like, nothing going on in these chapters? I'm, like, trying to figure out what's going on in these chapters. Because there's nothing going on. It's just switch, talk, switch, talk, switch, talk. Okay. We gotta get any world building. That's honestly what I thought when I was starting to read the middle part of the story, is that we're gonna get some character development and some world building, because that's the only reason why I could think of it would be going so slow. But no, nothing happens in that middle part. It's sad, honestly. It's sad. Like, the beginning is alright. The ending is alright. The middle is just the bad. The middle is the bad part. Oh my god. Middle's the bad part. And again, there's no world building. There's, you had like them living in like the human versions. They live in the United States, unlike the ambiguous situation with the Gem Knight version. Apparently, like Rose was part of a mob family. I'm guessing based on what was said, like possible mob family or possible, some kind of crime, some kind of syndicate, or maybe like tax collectors. That'd be kind of funny if there's tax collectors. I'm gonna say tax collectors for the lulz. That her sister, the Yellow Diamond one, is sending Jasper to get like the author had some idea, but there was just nothing to sink into not only the other world but also the characters. Hence why at the end where they started confronting each other and started calling each other out, those were actually really well written scenes, but they don't carry any weight because there was no reason to get behind those characters. There was no reason to get behind anything they say because we simply I didn't connect with them. And that's kind of the biggest thing, because there's, with these types of stories, and you try to do like the calling out stuff like that, you need to establish the other world, the differences, and make sure the characters are different enough that they're kind of calling each other out for like their flaws and stuff like that. But you need to give us a reason to care for both characters. If you don't do that, then those scenes don't carry a lot of weight. Like I said, those parts like where Human Amethyst is calling out Gem Amethyst about being, her birthing process. Like Human Amethyst was abandoned at birth, while Gem Amethyst was kind of made wrong. And so they're calling each other. Those are actually kind of written well. The problem is, it's just hard to get behind Human Amethyst where we don't know her situation. We don't know anything about her. That's pretty much it. Grammar-wise, there's nothing wrong with the grammar, so that's it. Would I recommend the story? No, I can't. That middle part is just so bad. Like, if it was even written a little better, I probably would consider it, but as it stands right now, as it's written, as of this recording, I can't. That middle part is just too bad. The beginning and the end are written decently enough. They're written at least decent enough that, it has a lot of good parts. But the middle part just drags it down. It slows down to a crawl. Nothing happens where you should have had all this stuff happening. It was just unnecessarily bad. Favorite part? I would have to say Human Pearl calling out Pearl, Gem Knight Pearl and everything, because that was pretty much mainly because those are the only two characters I could get behind. Those are the only two characters that were actually written well that I could actually kind of send some weight behind. That outside of those two, there's like no weight. Like no weight. But that's it. That's pretty much it. What would I do to fix it? Now, unlike several stories where I said where you had many different problems, but they had a corresponding theme, this actually only has one big problem, and it kind of splintered off and kind of made certain parts weaker. I said it throughout the story. This story needs world building, like some sort of world building. Like okay, Pearl's the main character, so instead of what I would do is start the story as normal. And when the slinker slams into the crystal heart, it doesn't affect Steven first. It affects Pearl first. Like, have her switch. Have both Stevens stay the same. Have them be exposition dumps. Like, they're the ones that kind of do the world building. Like, they're the ones telling Crystal and vicariously through, telling us vicariously through Pearl how everything works, how the worlds work, like the differences and stuff like that. And the author is Pearl. Not the author. The readers are seeing all this through Pearl. Like, it starts with Pearl, and then it goes to Amethyst and Garnet because they're kind of stronger because of Pearl's mental state and stuff like that. explore the world, both worlds, as both Pearl. Like, Pearl is supposed to be the main character. That's the important thing. Pearl is the main character. That needs, so a lot of the action should be with Pearl somewhere in that part of the story, unless it's absolutely necessary. But Pearl needs to have what the story needs to revolve around it. So it starts with Pearl, and then it goes to Amethyst, and then Garnet, and then all the stuff goes around. Steven's unaffected because he's only half gem, so he kind of takes the dimensions have to be weaker for them to start switching. Connie not switching, Lapis not switching, Jasper not switching. And then pretty much just explore the differences and similarities between the world and the characters. Like, oh, this is the same but different. Like, have Peridot kind of be freaky, like Peridot trying to, glomp Pearl, and there's lots of stuff you can do. There just needs to be world building. And then the second half, when the dimensions get weaker and weaker and everything starts getting crazy, then Peridot and Steven can start switching. I'm not including Jasper and Lapis simply because they're irrelevant. I'm keeping them out of the story. Just keep it to these five, just the Peridot, Steven, and the Gem Knights. Keep it to that. And then they start switching because Peridot, is kind of nearby and she gets, swept up. And so Peridot kind of becomes good and like, oh, now that, and then you could do the whole romance angle with human Peridot and human Pearl and stuff like that. There's so much. There just needs to be solid world building, and the whole craziness needs to be trimmed down. I do think another thing that should have been added was some kind of log showing which versions are in which reality. Like B, A, B, and and then G Steven or H Steven, and then have them some kind of log to keep track of just in case. Hey, and that's really it. Just needs some world building, and it needs some slimming down in some parts, mainly where the main character is focused. But I do think this story, out of the three stories, this one actually has the most promise. It's just dragged down by such a sheer lack of world building that it's crazy. So that is my review of Life on the Flipside by ASDF Love. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.